Meet my new friend Shelby. Originally from the US, Shelby came to the Philippines as a Peace Corps volunteer. She met her husband there, a former professional basketball player, and ended up living in the Philippines for a total of 5 years. Make sure to check out Shelby's content, link below. I really enjoyed chatting with her. We talked about her initial culture shocks after moving to the Philippines, what it's like dealing with traffic in Manila, her experience learning Tagalog, how living in the Philippines changed her as a person, and so much more. I hope you guys enjoy the video. You live in the States now, right? You're not in the Philippines right now?
No, we are in Georgia.
And is that where you're originally from?
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in Georgia. So that's why when we came back, because I was open to going anywhere in the States when we came back just to like try something new. But my husband being Filipino, very family oriented, he was like, no, we need to move close to your family, naturally. And also the Atlanta airport is a big plus, like with his family coming in and stuff, it's a major airport. So it makes it a lot more convenient for any travel that we would want to do or that any of his family would do.
Now, I know you have like a long history with the Philippines. Your husband is Filipino, right? How did all of that start? I mean, being from Georgia, how did you end up going to the Philippines for the first time?
So when I graduated college, I went into the Peace Corps, and the Peace Corps, they don't actually let you choose exactly where you're going. Like you give them your top 3 choices. And so all of my top choices were somewhere in Asia. And then ultimately they gave me the assignment of Philippines, like being a primary teacher, and you can take it or leave it, like their offer. And so Philippines was one of my top 3 and I ended up taking it. And a lot of it just feels like fate that I just ended up there in the first place, because I didn't even get to really choose the country. So.
And where did you go in the Philippines?
So first we had training and we were all together in Cavite for about a month. And then we were separated by sector. So like I said, there was like coastal resource management and I was in education. There was also like another group that did more like social welfare type stuff. And so my group then went on to Bataan. And so then we were in Bataan for a few months and it was just kind of a longer training. So for 3 months we were in Bataan and all of us were working in the same elementary school together, working on projects together, just to kind of get a feel for the educational system. And we had a lot of Filipino like language teachers and cultural mentors. We had this house that they rented out that all of the Filipino teachers would stay in, and we would go there every day for language classes, and they would teach us like cooking and just different cultural things, take us out shopping in the market just to kind of get us used to everything. And then we had our big assignment that they sent us out to, which for me ended up being in Sorsogon in Casiguran.
How long were you there for in total for that first trip?
Probably about a year and a half working with Peace Corps. And then I left for just like a month because by the time I was done with Peace Corps, I had already met my husband and we were just dating. But I went back home and found a remote job. So I found a job teaching online to Chinese students English. So because I knew like before I went back to the Philippines for us to, pursue our relationship and see where that would go, I needed to be able to support myself. So I found that online job, moved back like a month later, and then ultimately ended up staying for a total of like almost 5 years.
Okay, I'll be honest. Learning to speak Tagalog is pretty hard. But with the right resources, it can be a whole lot easier. And I've got you covered with my Beginner's Tagalog course. With 18 comprehensive video lessons, this 2-volume course makes it simple to start building your Tagalog skills from the ground up. Plus, you'll get lifetime access to PDF vocabulary sheets that will help you practice and retain what you learn. If that sounds good, click the first link in the description below to start learning Tagalog today. Now, back to the video. And what was it like for you when you first arrived in the Philippines? Like, was there a lot to get used to as an American being there?
Yes. I'm definitely not a person who likes the spotlight or is used to the spotlight. Like, I never played sports or did theater, anything like that. Like I'm not used to that attention. And so getting there, it's just kind of like you're going to get looked at, like you look different. Like, obviously, when you're going into the province and places like that where they're just not used to, seeing foreigners, especially in the public school that I worked at in the province, I would just be walking and I would feel like my hair, like getting little pulls because the kids were just so amazed. Like, they'd never seen blonde hair. And they would say that it was like maize, like corn, They were like, what color is that? What do you call that? And they would just stare at my face like they hadn't like spoken to someone with blue eyes before, So it's kind of like you're an alien. So I think that was the hardest part for me, was just all of the attention. That was the hardest really to get used to.
And it doesn't really have to be like, it doesn't even have to be negative attention for it to make you feel like you're different, kind of like that isolating feeling.
Yeah, just genuine curiosity. But you can feel when all the eyes in the room, are like coming your way. You can feel it. But I got used to it over time. Now it wouldn't bother me.
I think it is a good experience to like be the minority as well. I think as Canadians and Americans, we're used to living in diverse countries, but being of the majority. And so I think it gives you like a unique perspective when you can be the odd one out and be like, oh yeah, this is how this feels, And I think it's a good learning experience. How was the transition between living in the province and living in the city? Like in the city, it would probably be much more international.
I think, it was just so different. I've always lived in the suburbs, so kind of a mixture. I've never been a city mouse, but also not like a country girl either. So it's like stark contrast to what I was used to. So I think what I missed about the province after being there was just the wide open spaces. And I used to like to just go for walks outside and nature, hiking and things like that I would do stateside too. And I didn't get to do that as much in Manila, and just the traffic, I think, was like, wow, I'm just not used to this. So being in the city was definitely just a slap in the face, not like good or bad, or just so different from what I was used to. But that's just part of the beauty of the experience, just it's amazing like how extensive of a selection, like variety that the Philippines has to offer, like we were talking about earlier, just those beaches and then this amazing city. It's just incredible. So I loved it.
It's kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I'm back in the suburbs now. So that's kind of where I feel most at home.
Yeah, like you mentioned like going for walks and stuff. When I was in Manila, it didn't strike me as a very pedestrian-friendly place.
No, not really.
Yeah.
So I did miss
Sidewalks weren't always there.
Yeah. And luckily, my husband, he had invested in this property that was like an Antipolo. So we would go out there a lot. It was kind of this neighborhood that they were developing. It wasn't fully developed, but it was kind of like more in the mountains. And they had an oval and like a green space. And so it was only like a 30, 45 minute maybe like drive for us. But it felt like we were kind of getting away to the mountains, with some green space. So especially during COVID, because I was there in 2020, that was a lifesaver.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have the option to do that if you want it. So you must have been like farther north in the city than if you were close to Antipolo. Like where were you guys at in Manila?
So we were in, like I worked in Pasig, but we lived in, it was technically an Antipolo address, but really close to Marikina. So like just off Marcos Highway. Yeah, so it was still easy to get out, to the mountains or deeper into the city. So it was a really good spot.
What would you say like some of the other differences were between your day-to-day life living in Georgia or living in the Philippines?
Well, we had a driver take me to school because I couldn't drive. So it's something that it's like a love-hate thing for me. Like I loved that convenience. Someone can do this for me. I can play on my phone or I can sleep or whatever. They can take me where I want to go. But at the same time, like the flip side of that, it can feel kind of like you're giving up some of your independence, like things I used to be able to just independently go do. I wasn't comfortable driving around far in Manila by myself. So, I didn't want to get lost. No, I'm not good with directions, don't know the city well enough to be able to be comfortable doing that. And so that was probably the biggest thing, was the driving. And I would drive a little bit, but only to places that were really close to us, not to work or anything like that.
And you weren't taking like public transit in the city either?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I took jeepneys just with, there was one co-teacher that lived, our village was really close to hers. And so we would ride a jeepney to one spot together, and then my husband would pick us up and like take us home. So sometimes I would ride jeepneys, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, like the public transit in Manila is a little bit confusing. And maybe it's always like that in a new city, but when I went there, it seemed like there were so many different options to get around, but I didn't really understand any of them. Like there was local buses, there was the metro line, there's jeepneys, there's trikes, and then you can also do like the Grab or the Move It, like the different apps, right? And so I just kind of defaulted to those because they were like easy. But I think for the average Filipino, they're probably taking more public transit that would be more economical, right? And so, but I didn't know the lines. Like I would see the jeepneys and go like, okay, how do I know where that one is going? And then if I get on it, how do I know where to get off? And it isn't going to show you on Google Maps.
Yeah, but you don't know all the stops. Like it tells you how far that Jeep is going, but you don't know, like, it's the place I'm going in between here and there. Like
you'd have to recognize it. You'd have to look and like know where it is. And like even here in Vancouver, we have buses and trains and stuff. I'll be on like Google Maps being like, okay, I think my stop is coming up now, so I'll get off now. But you don't have that on a Jeep in Manila. You got to know the city.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the time, your journey is going to be a combination of like you're going to take a trike to get where you need to go, and then get on the Jeep, and then probably like another trike, and so it's a lot to remember.
And I'm sure it's doable for people that like know the city better, but I wasn't there long enough to really know it. And so I think that it always seemed like intimidating for me to do that.
Oh yeah. Early on when I was in Manila, I had a pretty good scare with the taxi because I had just like gotten off work and my husband was all ready. His basketball game, he had a game that night, and I was going to go meet his family there to watch. And so I just hopped in a taxi. Like traffic was horrible. And so I just hailed down a taxi finally because nobody was like accepting my Grab. And it was, oh gosh, I don't even know, maybe like a 2-hour ride at least. But halfway through, the driver was like, this is too far, for what the price that we agreed on. And he didn't want to take me the rest of the way. He wanted me to just get out. He's like, there's the MRT station, like you can get out here. And it was dark, like on a Friday, my phone's not fully charged. I have no idea where I am, like, because we're in the middle of this like trip. And I was so scared. I'm like, please don't make me get out. Like it had been raining. There's like water on the ground. There were people everywhere commuting. And I was like, I'll just pay you whatever you want. Like, please just take me where you said you're going to take me. Like I got so scared after that taxi experience that I never took another taxi again.
But doing anything at rush hour in Manila is kind of sketchy because you can get stranded. And that's something that I didn't also understand when I first got there. Like we would go out and take like, let's say a Grab to go and do some kind of touristy thing in the city. And then if we wanted to come back at 5:00, wherever we were in the city, suddenly there were no more Grabs to come and get us. And so we'd either have to wait for rush hour or walk. So we did that. I mean, one day we walked like maybe 2 or 3 kilometers trying to like get to an area that might have more Grab options, like getting out of kind of the hustle and bustle of the city and, walk in. And again, like we said, Manila is not really pedestrian friendly. And so I remember walking on the side of the highway, like there's like overpasses and like multiple lanes of the highway. And we're walking beside on this sidewalk that's about this wide, scraping up against the wall, trying to stay out of traffic.
And I'm sure everyone in their cars is just enjoying this sight, like watching you. Like
they're like, "What are you doing here? Why are you walking?" What has your experience been like learning Tagalog? I mean, you spent a few years there. You do speak some Tagalog, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. It was a little confusing at first because with work, they wanted you to learn your like local dialect. So they wanted me to learn like Bicolano, and then Casiguran like has its own like even dialect. And for me, ultimately that ended up just being too confusing, like with being back and forth in the city. So then I was like, okay, I would rather focus on Tagalog solely. And that was nice that they do give you that option, if you wanted to switch. So luckily I had really great resources. Through Peace Corps, I had this amazing language teacher who was always helpful throughout work. And then just Filipinos in general, like even if you're struggling with language, no one is going to judge you. So they're just glad that you're trying. So I think that helped me get more comfortable because I had previously, like when I was in college, I studied abroad for a summer in Germany, and I took like a semester of German before I did that. And so I was so excited to use my German. I went to this like ice cream shop, and I was going to order like a chocolate ice cream. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try doing this in German. And the guy looked at me and he was like, what do you want? Like just so, oh my gosh, I just wanted to crawl under a rock. Like I was so embarrassed. And so then after that, with trying to speak another language, I was super shy about it. So I'm lucky that in the Philippines, you say a couple of words and they're just like amazed at just the effort that you're putting into it. They just really appreciate that you're trying. And so that helped a lot with trying to learn something new and being comfortable with it. It's just how receptive they were and how understanding and patient. And also every Filipino knows English. So they're so good at English. So if you need to fill in the gaps, like, cause my vibe is totally Taglish. Like I can like mix it in because that's what we do at home. Like me and my husband, and like we do it with our kids. Like we always tell our kids like, okay, go wash your kamai, like it's just every sentence is like Taglish, so that's just kind of where we've landed.
So you guys speak Taglish at home. That's the language you guys use.
I'm trying to get my husband to use more like straight Tagalog with the kids because I really want them to not have to learn it later. I want it to just be natural for them because learning a language is difficult, whereas if you can just grow up hearing it, then that's better. So I'm trying to shift for him using more like being the speaker of Tagalog in the house, and then I'm the speaker of English and they hear both. But it's a work in progress.
I think for some Filipino people, speaking English at a high level is a bit of a social status thing, where it shows that you've had maybe an international experience, or you've studied at university, or you might have had a private education even, and it does open up opportunities for you internationally, right? Which is a big deal for Filipinos. Like OFWs are all over the world, and so I think Filipinos value English a lot, and that's great. It helps open a lot of doors and helps you get a job and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to raising kids, sometimes it carries over into that too. Like I see that with Filipino families here in Canada, where they're like, oh, I don't want to speak Tagalog with my kids. I want to speak English because, English is like this great language, and they're in Canada where everyone speaks English and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, but they could have all of the benefits of English and the benefits of Tagalog or Bisaya or Ilocano or whatever they speak at home, and they wouldn't cost them any more. Like they could just speak that language at home and they would learn English at school. Problem solved. Best of both worlds, right?
It doesn't take like any brain power from them. They can hold it all. Like it's amazing to me, like how many different languages people in the Philippines can speak. Like my husband speaks like English, Tagalog, Bisaya, Chavacano. And so he can understand a lot of Spanish because of the Chavacano. I'm probably forgetting one. Like, I don't know if Cebuano is different than Bisaya. But yeah, I think he can understand a little and speak a little bit of like Ilonggo. So it's amazing to me, their capacity for language.
What would you say the most difficult part of learning Tagalog is?
I think the like the ng sound, making some of those sounds that just don't come really natural. And part of me is like, I want to try and make the sound correctly, but I also don't want to try and sound like I'm trying to fake like an accent or anything, because I guess like where I'm from, it's like it can seem like you do that when you're like kind of mocking in a way, and so I don't want to sound like I'm trying to like mock a Filipino accent, like, because that's not the goal. So I think there's like, I have hesitation when it comes to that, like this is how it's pronounced and I can try to do that, but I don't want it to come off as like, I'm trying to sound like a Filipino, because sometimes when people try to sound like a Southerner and use a Southern accent, it's kind of like, is that offensive? So that's just one of like my like hesitations, but maybe that's just in my head. I don't think Filipinos would mind if I'm like, trying to pronounce it correctly. But
How did you feel when you were speaking Tagalog with people? How did they kind of react to that, or how did they engage with you in Tagalog?
oh, they were great, especially because a lot of them are kids. And so they're not judging you. You're really just trying to understand each other, and they might have like some broken English too that they're trying to learn. So that I think was a great experience, because when you're just trying to talk with the kids, they're just genuinely curious about you and want to get to know you. And, same way like when you're their teacher. So it felt like you're really, really working hard to communicate with them and not having that like second guessing feeling of like, do I sound silly right now? Because they don't care, they're just trying to understand you, and you're just trying to understand them, and you have the common goal of just getting to know each other, and it's so pure. So that was the great part about being in a school.
What would you say like your favorite thing about Filipino culture is?
They're so resilient. And I'm sure Filipinos have anxiety, but if they do, I don't see it. I don't notice it. Like they're just so, whatever comes, they've got their faith, they've got their family, like just maybe being in a country that's so prone to natural disasters. Like I related it to like Jumanji sometimes, it's just like anything can happen, just crazy, like the volcano, things that were just so outside of my scope or like my realm of experience and understanding can happen to them there. And just, it's no secret, like the poverty there is really intense. And so just their joy in everyday life and, their deep faith and their like deep connection with their family and like their genuine happiness all the time, even if, there's circumstances that maybe I myself would struggle, and they're just so happy. Like it's inspiring. And I think it's something that sometimes maybe foreigners or people like who just visit or have maybe even like employ Filipinos, maybe it's something that can get kind of overlooked or taken for granted, is like just because they always seem happy, like it doesn't mean that what they're doing is easy just because they make it look easy. They still work really hard and, have really difficult circumstances, but, that doesn't mean that what they're going through is easy just because they can do anything with a smile on their face. Like it's still difficult, So I think it can kind of make it easy for them to get like taken advantage of maybe.
It is impressive the way that Filipinos handle adversity. There's a lot of places in the world that face adversity, and the Philippines is definitely one of those, be it natural disasters. All of the earthquakes that have happened recently in the Philippines, government corruption, poverty, whatever it might be, they handle it in such a chill way, and with a lot of humor too. Yes, they're happy, they're joyous people, but they're also funny people. And I love that about Filipinos, how they just they can turn anything into a joke. And if any group in the world would have an excuse to be down, it seems like, the Filipinos would have a pretty good excuse to, be upset, but they're not. And they're known as like this, the most smiley people or something like that, the most smiling people in the world. And you meet like one Filipino and you can see that already. You're like, oh yeah, this is totally true. Okay, sweet. I think those were pretty much all of the questions that I had for you. Did we kind of cover your Filipino experience, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think that's pretty much everything, just to reiterate, like, I know sometimes it can seem like when foreigners are going there, at least for me, like I'm really like conscious and aware of the fact that I don't want to seem like I'm taking advantage of that country and like what it has to offer, because like the cost of living is so much lower, for example, or like, being a foreigner, people are really nice and curious and kind to you. And so, and, just vacations in general, the things you can do compared to like what it would cost here, it's just insane. And so obviously like I benefited from that and I enjoyed that, but that was never my intention in going there was, to like take advantage in any kind of way. And I definitely feel like that the Philippines, it taught me so much and it changed me as a person because it definitely like humbled me. I went there thinking like, okay, I'm going to work and like I'm going to help and I'm going to teach, like it was just very like, I'm going to do this. And then get there and it's just a complete 180. It's like the Philippines gave everything to me, like I wanted to help, but international development work, it's a long game. Like education, it's a long game. Like no one person is going to change the world like this young college student thought she was going to do, but ultimately it just gave me everything. It gave me my family, like some amazing friends, and I just have so much respect for the country and the people and, just like my husband, I mean, everything he has, like he worked for in such a different way than, maybe me. Like, it's not that I didn't work hard, but I also grew up with a lot of opportunities that were just there for me, like just ready for the taking. It's all like low hanging fruit, kind of like if I wanted the scholarship or I wanted this college or that college, like I was going to get it, like if I was willing to put in like a little bit of work, the opportunities were there for me and the comfortability and the comfortable life was just there. But he really had to create it. And like a lot of Filipinos, they really have to work their way from the ground up. And so I just have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you come from North America or from like a very wealthy country and you go to a developing country, I think that's something that stands out right away. That like, hey, people here are working just as hard as we are, if not more, and they're getting less for it. And I think that sometimes we can get defensive here and go like, well, what do you mean I'm like privileged being a Canadian? I had to work hard too. I had to have a job during summer and I had to, I have student loans and all this kind of stuff. And then you go like, oh yeah, they're also working just as hard, but they're not getting the benefits of it the way that I got the benefits of it. It's not about working hard. It's about having a fair exchange of effort and like, output or whatever, or input, whatever it is. And even the concept of like having student loans, so many developing countries don't even have that as an option. I see it as this negative thing that, oh, it's debt, but it's also an opportunity to study. And so we're so rich in opportunity. And so I think that's something that stands out when you go to a developing country. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize how much stuff I had, and not wanting to take advantage is a really important distinction. Like I talk to a lot of people about the Philippines. You can tell the people that genuinely care about the culture because the Philippines it's cheaper to live there. The weather is really nice. The people are nice, but it's also a unique culture in and of itself. Like it goes much deeper than that. And so people sometimes will go there just to benefit from those things. But if that's all you're focusing on, you're missing like the rest of the country and the culture and the language and all of the nuances that come with that. And so I think that's an important distinction to be like, I recognize that this country is unique. I don't just want to take advantage of the superficial things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the biggest shocks that I realized is like, I've always had a safety net. Like I'm always going to have a safety net, like something to fall back on, or someone to catch me, like whatever that may be. But a lot of people there, like they don't have that safety net. Like it's them and they make it and they do it on their own or that's it, And so for me, that was just so eye-opening because I can't imagine not like, having that net knowing someone's going to catch me if I fall, but that's not always the case.
And that safety net, typically for us comes from multi-generational wealth, right? Like the safety net is our parents or our grandparents. And in the Philippines, a lot of times it's the opposite where the kids are actually supporting the parents, right? They're working abroad and then sending money back home to their parents or their grandparents to support them. And so it's not only that they don't have a safety net, it's that a portion of their income is going to support the previous generation. It's like the opposite of a safety net. Yeah, so it's super commendable what Filipinos do. And like you said earlier, honestly, I don't know how they do it with the positive attitude that they have. Yeah. Shelby, I have like this new segment that I've been trying out where there's like rapid fire questions. Is that okay? Can we do this?
Yes.
I know. I feel like after our discussion, I'm now taking it to a very superficial place all of a sudden. So, forgive the transition. So I have like just a few questions and we'll go through them quickly. And they're all like Filipino culture related. And so if you know them, great. And if I'm asking questions of things that you don't know, that's okay too. Okay. Are you ready?
And so I just like quickly say whatever comes to mind of the choices you get.
Yeah, it'll be easy. It'll be easy. Don't worry. Adobo or sinigang?
Adobo.
Adobo? Okay.
Yeah.
Pancit or lumpia?
Oh, I have to choose pancit.
Pancit? You said that you knew how to cook pancit, so sounds like a favorite. Champorado or tapsilog?
Champorado.
Jollibee or McDonald's?
McDo.
Uh-huh. Macdo. You even know how they say it. Boracay or Palawan?
Boracay.
Jeepney or trike?
Trike.
City or province?
Province.
Beer or gin?
San Miguelite. Beer.
Okay. San Miguel. I like San Miguel too. Karaoke or basketball?
Oh, for me personally, karaoke. But yeah, if I had to do it, karaoke.
But you guys are like a basketball family with your husband,
My
right?
husband's probably gonna be like, oh, what? But if I'm watching it, basketball, of course.
Halo or leche flan?
Leche flan.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Rainy season or summer?
Summer.
ABS CBN or GMA?
ABS-CBN.
Eat Bulaga or It's Showtime?
Eat Bulaga.
Eat Bulaga. Okay, there it is. That was all of them.
Yeah.
Wasn't
funny,
so bad.
Because I used to live like right across from APT Studios, like where they filmed that. So I felt like I had to choose it.
You have a connection. You got a personal connection to it. Okay, sweet. Well, that was it. This has been a super fun conversation. Thanks for doing it.